Good afternoon, everybody. Happy New Year, and thanks for coming to the January 8th TTCC meeting. 21 years ago, on my first day as chairman for the first time of the TTCC, I missed the meeting. And everybody went, wow, your first meeting and you missed already. But my excuse was that was the day my daughter was born. So it was 21 years ago this coming Monday. So this is the closest TTCC meeting that I can make this announcement to her birth. So 21 years ago. So I'm proud of her, of course. We'll go ahead and make introductions. I'm Jim Urban, Planning Director, Oldham County.
David Burton, Kipton.
Jim Silliman, Oldham County.
Matt Meunier, Jeffersontown.
Eric Owen, Louisville Metro.
Brian Dixon, Clark County.
Brady Montgomery, Town of Clarksville.
Michelle King, Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control District.
Jerry Summers, Judge, Bullitt County.
Keith Griffey, Bullitt County.
Aida Kopi, Doc.
Barry Armstrong, City of Mount Washington.
Curtis Hockenberry, Shepherdsville. Thomas Witt, KYTC Planning.
Marideli Loisel, KYTC Planning.
Tom Hall, KYTC District 5 Planning.
Adam Allred, District 5, LPA Coordinator.
And Jacob Huber, KYTC Planning.
Rebecca Hammond, PK4.
Bob Stein, United Consulting.
Craig Barlow, Louisville Metro Pollution Control District.
Corey Pacino, City of Mount Washington.
Adam Forsyth, Kipton. Mike King, Louisville Metro.
Amanda Dethridge, Louisville Metro.
Austin Ogonoff, WSP.
Tim Myers, Strongmark. Tim Robinson, GRW.
Jared Haley, Tipton.
Sarah Bear Kipton. Elizabeth Barton Kipton.
Andy Rush, Kipton. Nick Bell, Kipton.
Zach Herzog, Kipton.
Mary Saker Kipton. Ashley Tenius Kipton.
Thanks all for coming. We're going to dispense with the November and December minutes. We were going to take action on those today, but we're going to postpone those to the February meeting. So the next agenda item is public comment. Is there anybody here from the public that wants to address the TTCC today? All right, there being none, we'll move on to the Transportation Policy Committee report. David?
Thank you very much. I'm going to report on the November TPC meeting and the December TPC meeting, which actually the TTC was involved with. At the November TPC meeting, we had our annual meeting over at the Louisville Marriott East. And the highlights of that meeting included a very nice presentation from Ferdinand Risco, who is the TARP director. We all enjoyed that. There was the Kite Awards, where we look for innovative transportation projects from throughout the region, and the winner was the Transportation Cabinet with the I-264 I-64 ramp improvement that was recently completed. And so that pretty much sums up what we did at the November TPC meeting. The December meeting was a joint meeting between the TTCC and the TPC, which you guys all participated in. The highlight of that meeting was the approval to proceed to the public involvement component of the MTP update and the TIP update, and then the approval of the participation plan draft. So we now have a fully enacted participation plan. So those were the highlights from the December meeting, and that pretty much concludes what happened for those two meetings.
I think most of us were there, and if not, any questions about David's report? All right, next item, Ashley and Zach are going to talk to us about the draft Connecting Kentuckiana 2040 and draft 2020-2025 Transportation Improvement Program Public Involvement Activities.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Ashley Tenius. I'm the Community Outreach Specialist for KIPTA. And we started a public comment period today. It will go all the way through February 7th for the draft MTP and draft TIP documents. We are going to be holding 8 public meetings. There will be 4 in Jefferson County. So starting today at the Floyd County New Albany Library from 5 until 7. Then next Tuesday, we'll be at the Northeast Regional Library from 5 until 7. On next Wednesday, we will be at Tark Union Station from 5 until 7. January 22nd, we're in Oldham County at the John Black Community Center from 5 until 7. And that Thursday, January 23rd, we are at the Clarksville Council Chambers from 5 until 7. And the following week, we will be at the Portland Library from January 28th from 5 until 7. January 29th, we are in Bullitt County at the Shepherdsville City Hall from 5 until 7. And we wrap it up at the Southwest Regional Library February 5th from 5 until 7. We have documents at all of the libraries in all of the 5 counties in KIPTA, and you can access those documents at the libraries. You can see them here if you want them. You can see them at the 8 public meetings that we're having, and they're also online. We've always put the documents online, and in the past we have used a software called Community Remarks, and that was the kind of software that allowed people to make comments on our documents. And this year we decided to, Zach and the transportation planners worked together to create an online comment form for the TIP and the MTP. And Zach's going to show you where you can access the documents on our new KIPTA website, so you know where to go when you log on to the website. And once you get there, he'll show you what the different features of the transportation, the TIP and the MTP are, because there's 3 links for each of the documents, and Zach will show you each of those right now.
Thanks, Ashley. So like she said, we're starting our public involvement, and one of the things we need to gather is public comments on the projects proposed. And so we put together some things on our website. And to get there, you can either go to either the MTP or the TIP links right here to go to the individual documents, or if you want to see them all, you can just click on the transportation link at the top, which should be working. There it goes. And we have them all listed right here, right at the top of the page. The draft to the plan, the public comment app, and then we also had the planners, along with the GIS staff helping, created some story maps. Are you guys familiar with what a story map looks like? That kind of explain in more depth what they are. Do you want me to show these guys, or
Yeah.
what did you want to show them?
Go into the MTP story.
Okay. This was the MTP story map that I'm going to give most of the credit to Elizabeth Park. She did a great job with it. And I'll just go through it real quick. This is yours. Anyway, she laid out really well in great detail, with great visuals, everything about the TIP. But if you want to go and browse it there, you can. And then Nick also did one for the TIP. She did MTP. Excuse me. But I'm here to display the Transportation Public Comments app. So this will be available through the story maps. We're going to bring laptops with us to the public involvement meetings, and the public can access this app there, or they can go to our website and comment if they want. This is just our social media policy. But any projects they want to view, they can zoom into. They can zoom in and click to any project. So I'll just zoom in and click one. It pulls up the information right here, and they can click the comment button and write the comment that they would like to put there. Or they can like it. We prefer that they leave a comment though. If they would rather sort through the projects individually, like by name or by street, you can zoom down and click to any of these, and it will zoom to the project that they were interested in, and they could review all the information displayed and leave a comment on it. And we've made one of these for the TIP and for the MTP for the public to view and use. That's all I got, Ashley.
Now, we would just encourage all of the TTC and TTCC to attend a meeting if you can. If we have a meeting in the county that you work in, if you work in Jefferson County, you have lots of opportunities. And then we also have them in Clark, Floyd, Bullitt, and Oldham counties. We'd love to have our policy and technical committee members come to a meeting, and that way if we have members of the public there and they have a question, you guys could explain it to them firsthand. It would be great. There's lots of opportunities for that. And then one of the things that we talked about at the December TTCC and TPC joint meeting was the comments that we received for the participation plan. We didn't get great feedback from the TPC on those comments. So we plan on this outreach period, once the comment period closes and we have those comments, we plan on holding a meeting to go over the comments received before adopting the plans. We want to make sure that everyone on our committees hears what the public had to say about the different projects, and that we're doing everything completely open and transparent, and that all the comments have been seen by the committee members. So that is something we really do want to stress when it comes time to review those comments at the end or at the beginning of February, around February 7th when the comment period closes. Does anybody have any questions, or do they want to see anything additionally on the?
I do. We'll be advertising on Facebook.
Yes.
And are there ways that they can help us by sharing some of the information to their?
Sure. I would appreciate any shares you can do on social media. We are sending out events through Eventbrite and Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Anything you can share, or if you do plan on coming to a meeting, click that you're attending, maybe share that. So the more your constituents see that you are involved with some of our outreach efforts would be great. That way we can hopefully get more of the public involved when we're releasing these documents. Thanks.
Great. No further questions then for Ashley or Zach? Thank you. Last year we started, we put together a Complete Streets working group, and we got a little bit of a start. It took a while, but with Larry's departure, we kind of put it on hold, but now Sarah Baer is going to tell us we're going to get that committee going again, that work group.
So if you all want to follow along with the memo for agenda item number 7 in your packet, it has the schedule outlined there, but I'm going to go over that briefly. So we're going to start back up with the Complete Streets working group after next month's TTCC meeting. That is February 12th, in which the staff will come with a draft policy outline for the working group's consideration. The schedule we're kind of going to follow is after every TTCC meeting, just because hopefully everyone will already be here and it'll be very convenient for everybody. So after the next meeting in February, the one in March, we'll go over the draft of the Complete Streets policy. Then in April 8th, on the April 8th meeting, we'll take the draft policy to TTCC to recommend a public comment period so the public can have the option to weigh in and kind of give their input. And then on May 13th, we will seek action from this committee to recommend approval to the TPC. And then a few weeks later, on May 28th, we'll go to TPC asking them to adopt the policy so we can get it in action. And that's the schedule that we have right now. I don't foresee it having any changes. So we'll get started next month.
So we saw some examples of Complete Streets policies from other communities, and the group is really open at this point. I mean, we have people that had come to that first meeting, but we can still, anybody that wants to come to these meetings is still welcome to come. It's not like it's a closed working group with a number of people, so.
Yes, if anybody else wants to participate, the schedule's here, and like Jim said, it'll be open for anybody else that wants to be involved.
I would just comment that the cabinet would definitely want to be involved and comment on the Complete Streets policy, and certainly make sure that our district and our central office folks are copied on those invitations.
Would that be you? We would send them to you?
Yes.
Okay. And to Thomas?
So yeah, me and Tanya and Maridelli. Me and Tanya and Maridelli too.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all.
Great. Any questions about the working group or what we're doing with the Complete Streets policy?
We'd like to get coverage from all 5 of the counties and as many modal interests as possible. Make sure everyone is at least comfortable with the process and the outcome.
And Sarah, Are we gonna share, I think I was supposed to, and I forgot to bring them today, the notes I had about the previous information that we have been given.
Yeah, we can do that.
We need to somehow get those out so people are understanding which examples we're looking at.
Yeah, sure. David and I have created a document on the Google Drive, and we can add your notes from the other policies into that and maybe distribute those before our next meeting.
Mm-hmm. Just so you can get yourselves up to speed before the February meeting. Mm-hmm. Great.
Thank you.
Anything else about the Complete Streets Working Group? There being none, streetlight data overview. Andy?
By show of hands, how many people are familiar with streetlight data? Heard of streetlight data? How many people have used streetlight data? All right, a couple. So, some familiarity with it. Okay, so for those that don't know, KIPTA has recently become a subscriber to the streetlight platform. Okay, and what that means for those that are unaware about, don't know about streetlight data. Streetlight data is kind of the new, modern, state-of-the-art way origin destination data. We get origin destination data these days. It's utilized both, on the private side, public side, both to do all sorts of things, from a project level analysis that the cabinet or the city or small local government might do, to something region-wide that we might do. So, for instance, I'm going to give a brief example or showcase of some of the things we've kind of got in the works just in the past few weeks of what we want to do with it here at the regional level. And then maybe at the end, I'll maybe see if there's any ideas, or maybe not today, but maybe soon you can share some ideas that you might have, or what ways you want to see us use this. So I think I'm going to jump right in. So Streetlight, what we have is a 1-year subscription to what they call the Streetlight Insight platform, and all we need is our email address, and we can log in from anywhere to log into this. So you basically create your zones, you do your analysis, and then you visualize your analysis. So the zones, and something I'll show you today, one of the things we want to do really early on is do what's called a through trip survey. So back in the day, people used to have to pull people over on interstates or whatever and say, hey, where you been, where are you going? Can't really do that anymore. It's not very legal anymore. Nor do people want to be bothered with mail or phone calls or anything like that. So this is a great example of what we're doing. So we've created our external stations. These are external to the KIPTA MPO region. We've got all 46 of the roads that cross a county boundary, entering, exiting our MPO. We've got them coming in. We've got them going out. Okay, so we've created these zones right here. So those zones make up this analysis. Let me go to visualizations, and I'll show you what we've got thus far. So this analysis tells us where trips that are coming through our region, where they're coming from, where they're going. So we can break it down personal versus truck travel. We can break it down by day of week. We care mostly about weekdays, which is what we typically care about mostly for our travel demand forecasting. We can do it by origin zones, destination zones. We can do it by time of day. So that's something that we hope to get from this too, is to finally give us some really robust data set in terms of time of day information on the trips, because that's something we've been lacking for a long time. So anyways, so the way it works, select an origin zone. So the chairman sitting up here, we'll try I-71 in Oldham County. How about we do that? Okay, so I've labeled these I-71 in. So that is coming from, let's say, Cincinnati, or more specifically coming from Henry County, crossing the Henry Oldham County border to any other of those external stations I showed you earlier. So this is telling us that on the average weekday, all day, as opposed to like in the morning, let's say, the primary destination of a trucker, of a traveler through our region goes to what I've labeled as I-65 Kentucky out. That means they're coming in at the Henry Oldham County border, and they are exiting at the Bullitt Hardin County border on I-65. Okay, just like we know that number is something in the order of magnitude of 9,000 a day. Many of them are going to I-64 Indiana out, is the IN. So that's a trip going toward Evansville, let's say. Okay, so the interstate ones are the predominant ones, of course, for those long haul trips, those trips that pass through our region. You'll find some smaller state routes, and some of them will be virtually zero when you get down to the very minor roads. So that's just one example. One of the things that we're going to do is pair that with our internal zones. Where are they coming? If they're coming from Henry County, Carroll County, Cincinnati to who knows where in the Northeast, where are they going inside our region? So you've heard me talk about our TAZs, the zones that we use for all of our analysis. We'll be able to answer that question as well. And so I guess I'm going to show you one more thing on that front, something we've messed around with a little bit. So several of us have been kind of messing around with it thus far. We've only been a subscriber for a few weeks now. So we're just getting our feet wet, and they've been pretty helpful with us thus far. They're the software provider. So this is kind of I showed kind of the external. So here's an internal view of what we're doing. We can answer similar questions. We can say, hey, I wonder where, let's find the airport. The airport is zone name 354. I wonder where trips are coming from. Zone 354. It should tell me here on the right where a lot of them are coming from. So many of those are the neighboring zones. Oh, here we go. Here we go. So we got some neighboring zones. So we can answer questions like that. We can create, they call them gates. Gates it's like a gate on the road, a virtual gate saying if a traveler crosses this road at this point, where's their ultimate destination? We can also do what they call, I think, middle zone. So a trip that came in Henry and Oldham County, and it ends up in Indiana. Which bridge do they use? We put a gate on the bridges or something like that. So there'd be lots of questions that we can fill our curiosities, but more importantly, can probably answer some questions we've often wondered about. And so I guess I'll finish up by saying, if you all have ideas on projects that you would like to maybe try some things out, we're more than open to do so. I think there's a few limitations on what we can share and how we can share it, given our agreement with Streetlight. I think for the most part, if it's for a local member government, I think we're in good shape. I think they have tried to draw the line. Perhaps it's cool to share it with the local governments, but maybe not so with KYTC directly. But we can certainly we'll work on that. And we'll make sure that we can provide some beneficial support to the KYTC and NDOT. To be quite frank, they're interested in selling KYTC and NDOT some data too, right? So that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions or show it off further, or we can talk later. Offline. Yes, ma'am.
Question, will we be able to determine travel patterns for commuters?
Travel what?
Commuting travel patterns.
Yeah, we can talk. Simply to work? Yes. Good question. Very good question. Within the data, they define trip purpose. Okay, so trip purpose is a key part of our household travel survey. We use 3 purposes: home-based work, home-based other, non-home-based. Theirs match perfectly to ours. That was a key thing. So you may wonder, well, how do they know where the home is? And maybe I should have mentioned this earlier. The way this data is acquired is through GPS devices, typically in trucks or fleet vehicles. That's one set. The other set, and maybe the larger sample size set, is through our cell phones. It's through the location-based services that are in the apps that we have on our smartphones. So the sample size is humongous compared to what we've traditionally utilized. So to answer your question, they know where my phone sleeps at night, so they have a guess where I live. So or me anonymously, anonymous phones. They know, so they know that my phone's phone, that's my home location where it sees my phone on a regular basis in the late night hours. It also knows that I probably work here. My phone is here at the other building on a regular basis. So it makes that connection to that home-based work trip. That is my trip here, my trip home. Similarly, if it's not to one of those places, it's a home-based other or not home-based.
Sure. Will KIPTA produce some kind of report on?
Yes.
I'm specifically interested in commuter travel patterns to resolve some of the transit issues or transit planning. So how will I be able to use it?
That's very much our intention. So we have a subscription for 1 year. We'll see how justifiable the additional cost of doing it year over year will be. But even if we don't continue to subscribe, our intention, to be clear, is to extract every little thing we can out of it, to answer the questions that we've wondered about or the questions that have been answered through our household travel survey, which is 20 years old at this point.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to get in my mind what are some of the possibilities of projects or something that might benefit me by having this information?
So,
What are the possibilities, what I might be working on?
so
It might sound like a dumb question, but
we could say something in Mount Washington. We could use one of our zones. One of our zones that we traditionally use. We can draw our own zone. You could say, hey, this new development, these 100 acres over there in Mount Washington. Let's see the shopping center, even small as a shopping center or something like that. Where are people coming from to use that? We don't necessarily know exactly which roads they use, but we certainly know where they're from, where their trips were originated. So that can be, the other example in my mind is through some of maybe the bigger projects. Transportation Cabinet has has several ongoing studies. 264 and 65, for instance, that's being studied ongoing. That's a good example of a use of this type of data. Who's coming through that interchange? That's really central to our region, right by the airport and fairgrounds there. Lots of different origins and destinations. People coming from lots of places near and far go through that interchange. So that could help better define the solutions because not all of perhaps the data could help indicate that they might not be going their shortest path through there. They might be taking a circuitous route, and it actually has a measure that says that measures the circuity of the trips. How much of a multiple of the straight line distance as the crow flies are the typical trips that are between these two destinations. So there's a lot of good stuff, and we at this point, 1 month in, we're pretty much just scratching the surface with some of these.
can you tell the difference between commercial and private passengers
Yes.
or transportation?
Yes. Trucks. I think they've got it defined as trucks.
Yeah.
Again, that comes from the separate data set, and I don't have a full understanding of this, but I think they're trying to phase that out, at least in part, because the data that comes from these phones, the location-based services that comes off the apps, is so much more robust in terms of sample size. They estimate that, I believe one estimate they give is that in some instances they've seen sample sizes as much as 28%. That might not sound like a big number. That is a gigantic number. Our household travel survey, I think, had not even 1%, and that was doing good. And to replace that household travel survey like for like would have costed so much money to get a 1% sample size in our region in modern times. So it's not to say this is not a big expense, but this expense or this year-long subscription is a tiny fraction would take to replace the surveys that we do.
If I wanted to know what traffic that was getting off of Gene Snyder at Barstown Road, 31E, headed toward Mount Washington, you could tell that?
We can tell, so we could draw a gate at just south of Gene Snyder or something like that. We could draw a gate just north of Mount Washington, whatever might be the best way to do that. But we could say where those people that are going north out of Mount Washington in the morning, where are they going? Where are they going in our region and I think beyond? So we can answer that question.
Do I have to get to you all to get this information, or is there a website that I go to mess with it?
Talk to
You
us.
probably don't want me on your website.
No. We have the capability, and part of our agreement, we can share it directly with consultants that are doing work directly for KIPTA, which is different than a consultant doing work for a KIPTA member agency.
So I just come up with my questions.
That's different to you guys. If you, Lori, send me an email and say, hey, let's look at this. We'll look at this.
Awesome.
So I'm going to use New Albany as an example.
Okay.
Of course. So is there a way to differentiate, I'm assuming there is, the through traffic that are just using New Albany as a cut through versus the folks that are actually coming there as New Albany as a destination?
Like a person using Spring Street and Brown Station to avoid a toll?
Mm-hmm.
I bet we could.
That's what I'm.
I'd be curious. Yeah, let's figure that out. Yeah, I think we probably could. We'd probably have to draw multiple gates or something like that. Those gates I mentioned.
Yeah.
Just continue it on. I was like, just
All right.
do the analysis from where it gets off there at Brown Station through New Albany, because we're working with New Albany on some projects there.
I think we could.
There's some things I'm curious on. I've been
Me
curious
too.
on.
All right. Yeah. Send me an email, and we'll see what we can do.
So Andy, those volumes that you're looking at, are those the sample volumes, or is that
Good question.
total volume?
Good question. That is among the questions that we have a conference call with Streetlight tomorrow or Friday. I think it's tomorrow. Because there's a couple different ways to get these volumes. It's 8,613, for instance, over here. It's my understanding what that represents in this case is that there's 8,000 trips from that zone to the other zone in the day. Now, the nearby zone, or the what we call an intra-zone trip, a zone staying within your zone, there's a way that we may need to begin to exclude those, because when it comes to your phone movement, it takes every trip it defines a trip as a place where you where you begin moving after you've been that place for 5+ minutes. Okay, so that kind of makes things a little awkward thinking about that home-based work trip that we were talking about, the AIDA. In that, if Jim came in from Oldham County to Kipta this afternoon, and he stopped and got something to eat, or he stopped for gas at the gas station right near here in our zone, and he was there for more than 5 minutes, that would be 2 trips, as long as he stopped for 5 minutes. If he didn't stop for 5 minutes, then it would just be 1 trip. It'd be an Oldham County to Kipta trip, or whatever TAZ trip, or a zip code trip, or whatever areas we end up defining. So, but that intrazonal trip, some of them are real. Jim's trip from the gas station to Kipta is a real trip, but is me walking from one side of this building to the other after I've sat here for 5 minutes? That's not a trip. So I think for some of those reasons we may need to fill those out, which are independent from most of the things that we need to talk about. I think all the questions. I don't think that's a big factor in what we're doing there.
And also though, like if you're only getting a 28% sample size, say, and you're looking at origins and destinations and the volumes between those, like, do those have to be scaled up to the traffic volume?
So they scale them up given data that they have, and then also, what's another possibility, which is, again, we're just scratching the surface on, and they allow you to calibrate it to local data. So those external stations that I showed you earlier, the way I set it up was to be calibrated based on the traffic counts that we know. We know the traffic counts at all 46 of those locations. Okay. I'm curious to find out what those differences are. They provide it in multiple ways. They provide it as a proportion. Like 25% of the trips that cross in Henry County and go out to Hardin County, or the number, when that number is there, they call the streetlight volume, STL volume, and at least 1 or 2 other options that are available to us. So that is something that we need to clarify before we start putting it fully to use. That's for sure. Before we fully depend on this.
How dynamic are these numbers? In other words, if you tomorrow did the same search, is it updated every day, or?
So we can go. I think we have data through. I'd have to start another. Currently, sitting here in January of 2020, or as of yesterday, let's say, data was available through October of 2019. So there's a 2-month lag, something like that, 2-3 month lag. It's pretty good though. It's not meant to be real time. That'd be like you'd have to do stuff with maybe some even the Waze data that Metro and KYTC have utilized. We're not, as planners, we don't need the real time data.
Could it essentially be used to get traffic counts? So if we close enough gates, could it say that we're just interested how many trips are there on this particular roadway?
I think there are ways to do that. I think they streetlight in some of what their products, and I think it's one of the things we didn't add on. We've got a kind of a core subscription. You can add lots of things on, ask all sorts of questions of it. But I believe that they've got some synthetic traffic counts that in theory would be traffic counts on every roadway. It's pretty cool if they're believable. But there may be ways to get some.
It would be a number that would be better than none at all.
Correct.
But not necessarily accurate, because not everybody. How does it account for somebody who's carpooling? So you got two phones in the same car, 5 phones in the same car.
So it counts that as 2 trips, and that's if there's one. If you ask me what the most major difference is between our traditional household travel survey and relying on something like this for the same type of data, it is the vehicle occupancy. Because in the old school way, on your trip diary, you said, I went here at this time and I had this many people with me. Mm-hmm. We don't know that. We do not know that. So in terms of how we plan to put this to use in our travel demand modeling, we're going to have to make some adjustments. We're going to have to take this, adjust based on the local data and the national trends, I suppose, So we don't have good answers to that question. That's the missing piece. We asked that question when we put out an RFP back in the late summer, early fall. If possible, we'd love that, but it's just by the nature of it, it's not gonna happen, or it's not gonna happen yet with current technology, with analysis of current technology.
Hey, I'd like to comment to what
Please.
you said about how we might use streetlight data. We're doing a study on I-65 about how and where to improve it, and basically through Bullitt and Jefferson County, I guess. And one of the things that we learned using streetlight data is that 30% of the vehicles that travel on I-65 don't stop in Bullitt and Jefferson County, and that's important to us when it comes to who is the user and how do we target input from those people, and where should we be focusing our improvements on local access points or through traffic. So that's a real life example of how we use streetlight data.
I think the possibilities are wild. How many questions you can answer. Just like with a lot of things forecasting related. Just because it'll provide an answer, you gotta give it a smell test before you say that is the answer. But that is on a roadway like I-65 that we trust has a large enough sample size. Lots of trucks, lots of phones are passing up and down I-65, 71, and all the like. Nothing I've seen would lead me to doubt anything I've ever seen, including piecing it out. Saying, hey, how many people are crossing the Salt River Bridge, or how many people are for those short trips from the Cedar Grove to 44, because that seems to be a key problem, a key question that's being asked, and perhaps solutions are going to be tailored around that question. That's a good example.
Yeah.
All right.
Great. Thanks, Andy. The next item, Nick is going to talk to us about the project management process update.
Yes, thank you, John. So I think I've maybe touched on this in the past couple months. We are planning, today we're planning to form a working group to look at the project management process. This was something that was developed, I think it was finalized in maybe late 2016. It came as a result from our federal certification review with Federal Highways and Federal Transit, because we had a large unobligated balance of funds in the Surface Transportation Program in Kentucky. So this was a result of that, and the process has worked pretty well, but there's definitely some things that we can improve. One of them is trying to reduce the administrative burden on how we collect progress reports, how cost increase applications are submitted, and all the various things that sponsors have to fill out in order to change a project, get more funds, shift a phase, blah, blah, blah. So today I'm asking for volunteers, hopefully from all 5 counties, if not at least folks from both states, to work with me on this project management process working group. I think the process could take 2 months before we bring it back to committees with a proposal or revisions to the process or what have you. Hopefully we can do it sooner than that, but it just kind of depends on how much folks really want to change things in the process. So I've heard bits and pieces from different folks during different project review meetings, and so this will be an opportunity to kind of get all those together, get everyone in the same room, and try to make this process even better than it is. It has resulted in some probably playing a very minor role in more funds being obligated in 2019 fiscal year than ever before, at least in the last 5 or 6 years. But there's definitely some tweaks that I can see as well that would reduce our staff time as well and do things a little bit smarter and try to collect the same amount of information. So are there any questions or comments about that? The project management process itself, the policy. Okay. Is there anybody that would like to volunteer to be on that committee? I'll take names down today, and then I'll send something out via email as well. Okay. Tom, gotcha.
Can multiple people from an agency participate?
Sure.
I would anticipate this is a big working group.
Adam? Yes. Adam Ulrich, okay. Jim? Matt, yay, gotcha. Dirk,
As a chair, I'm
Brittany,
I'll say someone from New Albany.
New Albany. I'll put your name down for now, and you can forward it to whoever. And our old friend Amanda Deathridge. And I. Yes.
Nick is chair, I'll be there.
Perfect.
And probably Belinda Demas from my office too.
Okay.
Also Tanya Higdon from Central Office.
This is gonna be a nice group.
Yeah, and it should be, this is a, good opportunity for us to make a process better.
Yes, absolutely. I think there's definitely ways to improve it. Okay. If I didn't get you, I will send an email out to all the TTCC members anyways after this meeting today. Thank you all.
Yeah, we are gonna extend an offer to folks that aren't here today.
I am gonna send out an email, yes, sir.
Yes, okay,
Yep, to TTCC members.
yes. We want to make sure that every jurisdiction is represented if they want to be, and that we go through this process fairly efficiently. And Nick, do you have any potential dates yet for when?
I do not have dates, but I'd like to meet within the next 2 weeks to get this rolling and.
So you'll send out a.
The sooner the better. What I'll do is I'll send out an email today to anybody that wasn't here, send that out and ask for additional volunteers. Then I'll send the actual working group an email. Probably send out a doodle poll in that where everyone can go and select which meeting dates work best for them. I mean, there's going to be cases where sometimes things just conflict, but I'll try to do my best to choose dates that the massive majority of folks can attend. So, I mean, I'll do the next step and then scheduling that meeting depending on who can make it to a specific date.
Great. Thank you, Nick. Any questions of Nick? We're going to embark on a good process here. Thank you. The next item is Coordinated Human Services Transportation Plan Update. Elizabeth?
Hi, good afternoon. I just wanted to announce to you all that we will be starting the update to the Coordinated Human Services Transportation Plan. The last major update was in 2014, so it's been a little while. So I'll be doing that. For those of you who don't know, the plan outlines the strategy for enhancing transportation options for people, persons with disabilities, and older adults. So it's a very important document utilized by our own social services to outline projects and resources for those populations. And this is required under federal transit law in order to fund projects for 5310 funds. That program is the Enhanced Mobility for Individuals and Individuals with Disabilities. So it's also required. I'll be working with you all in the next couple of months. I'm anticipating it's going to take about 6 to 8 months because there's some surveys involved and a lot of outreach with different agencies. You all, the TPC, RTC. So there's a lot of people involved with updating this plan. So you might have any questions? All right.
Everybody good? Thank you. Next item, Andy, Performance Management Plan, this EM1 Safety Performance Measures.
Thank you again. So each year we're required to update one of our performance measures. So you've heard myself or Ms. Deathridge get up here in the past and talk about performance measures, specifically the safety performance measures. Those are the ones that Federal Highways requires that we update annually. We have to update what they call a baseline, which is a 5-year rolling average looking backward, and a target, which is a 5-year rolling average that includes, per their requirement, that ends in the year we're in now. So for instance, our new target is going to be 2016 through 2020, those 5 years, the 5-year rolling average. Last year when we presented it, our first update, if you will, the issue was we showed targets that were increasing as in, lacking better word, in a bad way. Things were growing, fatalities were growing. Serious injuries weren't necessarily growing, but fatality rates in particular, and the non-motorized, if I'm not mistaken, fatalities and injuries were on the increase. We used a methodology that kind of looked between the two states, and we kind of chose one or the other, or kind of combination of both, if I'm not mistaken.
And so the time is now to do that again. So we have to update it by the end of next month, okay? And so the question today, and we'd like to get some feedback from you guys, is shall we go with the process we did last time, which is effectively KIPTA staff working the numbers, looking at the numbers, developing the numbers, given the methodology we used in the past? Or shall we create perhaps another working group? A working group that would meet here sometime in the next several weeks, let's say, certainly before the February meeting of this body, to get in the nitty gritty that we probably shouldn't or can't do in a 5 or 10 minute presentation. The numbers that we're seeing so far, if we can put it up here, I guess just as a very brief example, one of the issues is that we're required, or we are including numbers from 2019. 2019 ended a week and a half ago. And so we've just downloaded the 2019 numbers, and those need to be a full part of what we're doing. Yet we have a late February deadline and a mid-February, early February TTCC. Just to show, and this is very preliminary, what's going to come up is just some of the numbers that, again, I've literally just got the Indiana ones this morning, showing that the fatalities in Kentucky, or excuse me, the fatalities in Jefferson County are up by 2019 over 2018. Yet in all the other counties, they're down, if only slightly. Crashes in Jefferson County were almost identical. That is, there were 2 more crashes in Jefferson County this past year than there was in 2018. And you can see some of the numbers down the list. So I've got the change in crashes, the change in fatalities, and again, some of the other numbers we're required to do: fatalities, fatality rate, serious injury rate, and then the non-motorized. So all the others take a little bit more analysis than this preliminary analysis. So anyways, we would get in much more depth than this, to say the least, if we ever did a working group. We will get, if this committee doesn't want to do a working group, let's say, we will present numbers that will be basically a replication of what we did last year, using the recent trends to help define a target going forward.
In the same methodology.
In the same methodology, yes, that's right. Again, that methodology was basically looking at the recent past and the trend line of the recent past to help us develop the target for the year 2020. And again, the target, and this is where it gets backwards perhaps, the target is for five-year rolling average. 4 of the 5 years are in the past. Now, see, we can't change the target very much. We can't have an aspirational goal of saying we want 0 people, we want 0 fatalities. If we could, we would. You know, but 4 of the 5 years are in the books, so that keeps us. That's part of the problem. It's part of the image problem, if you will. The 2 states have updated theirs, and on fatalities, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they've updated their 2020 targets. I think both are increasing, or relative to the target they set last year, they are on the increase, if I'm not mistaken. But again, it's still, some of that stuff is a little bit preliminary. So again, if we'd like to do a working group, that's something that we are more than willing to put together and have anybody involved that wants to be involved. If it's more a matter of, I can come back to you here in a month's time and show what I have. But nonetheless, we are up against a late February deadline. So right.
So it does have to be a quick group if anybody's interested. I always trust KIPTA staff to, use the methodology and come up with the numbers, and we respond to that when they present to us in terms of being able to move that forward. So
that's not to say we couldn't make changes. If I'm standing here a month from now,
yeah,
we couldn't say, hey, what'd you do there? Is there a way we can do that? Yes, we can do that. Mm-hmm. But if we want to meet in 2 or 3 weeks, and then we'll have the findings of that group and present that. It seems to be one or the other, I suppose.
Right. Anybody want to meet with KIPTA staff to talk about?
I've got a lot of experience with Jefferson County crash statistics.
You can do that? We can meet with, if we want to, put it up to the chairman, if we need to meet with Metro or something and kind of.
It doesn't have to be a formal working group. It could be just you have anybody that wants to meet with staff can do that. I think in this case, again, I'm kind of brain dead on this whole how this is arrived at. So
well, 2018 is a low number for
right.
us.
Yes.
So that kind of sways the results.
One thing I should have mentioned that I didn't is that what matters more than the difference between 2018 and 2019 in terms of the optics of our target is 2019 versus 2015, because 2015 rolls off of the 5-year average, 2019 rolls on. And so, so the difference is more, I jotted it down earlier, so we're talking where the difference in fatalities is, was 4 for the entire MPO. Looks like the difference was perhaps 7. That is, 2019 had 7 more fatalities than 2015 did. So again, that's going to be a headwind, if you will, in terms of setting a target that that looks, for lack of a better word, looks good.
So why don't we do this? Instead of a working group, Andy, what if we said within the next 2 weeks, so 2 weeks from today or tomorrow, whichever, pick a day, if you're interested in meeting with KIPA staff regarding these performance measures, contact them, set up an appointment. They'll talk to you individually instead of a working group.
I just have a question. At the moment, are you looking only at the safety performance measures update, not
Yeah.
transit and?
The updates to the other federally required performance measures, there's no action required right now, but those are on in our mind to keep an eye on, because we're coming up. For the most part, those are like a 4-year update. Okay, and so if I'm not mistaken, those were first adopted in 2018, and so we're coming around. We're about midway through that. So the data that goes into them is an ongoing need of update for collection or analysis, and so that is something that is very much in our minds too. But again, the requirement is unique to the safety one to update those each year.
One thing I wanted to mention, there's a public transportation agency safety plan that is required. I think this summer we're coordinating with TARC staff. Just wanted to throw that out there because that's a brand new one. TARC has to come up with a plan, and part of that includes, I think, some metrics.
Similar to the TAM plan is the PTASC, I think is the acronym. So similar to how we adopted TARC's goals, word for word, I think it would probably be that way with the safety plan. I believe we're talking to Lori Wilson, or Lori.
Oh, safety.
Safety, yes.
Yes, safety.
So can't get enough of the performance measures here in the next month. We'll probably talk in the spring or something.
Okay, so anybody that wants to meet with Andy or KIPA staff about this, just timely in the next 2 weeks. You can call them, talk on the phone, or set up a meeting.
Whatever we need to
do that. I don't think we
If
need.
I don't hear from anybody, well, I'll go along my merry way and present something to this committee next month.
Yeah, let's keep it again at 2 weeks, so just so you can get your work done.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Is there any other business? I've got one.
I've got one item too, something that came up kind of yesterday from it's regards to our MPO dedicated funds in the region, specifically in Indiana. Floyd County notified me that 2 of their projects that have fiscal year 2020 phases are not going to make it. And Indiana, if you don't make it, you lose those funds. There's no carryover from year to year. So we're going to do a pretty emergency call for cost increases in Indiana for those. It's like $141,000 that we have to get reprogrammed to a different project because Indiana's fiscal year basically closes in almost like April. It's kind of crazy how early that occurs. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I've been coordinating with Indiana project sponsors, but that is coming up on the horizon. So I'll probably have action for you all next month.
Any other business?
Can I ask a question about that? Since we started sending out the meeting notifications through Eventbrite, I think maybe 1 or 2 people didn't get them. But if you aren't getting our meeting notifications and you want them, if you can talk to me afterwards or send me an email or call me, I'll put you on the list. We copied over the contacts from our old subscribers list, and some people's names just somehow weren't on there, but I don't want anyone to miss our meeting notifications, so I want to make sure you guys are all getting those.
Okay.
I have a comment too.
Go ahead. Well, I've got one. I don't want people to run away. But go ahead.
All right. Well, real quickly, Adam Ulrich introduced himself earlier as our district LPA coordinator. Just a little backstory on that. Probably you folks have gotten information from our office about Adam being our LPA coordinator for Kentucky LPA projects. That was in 2009. That was a position that was assigned to a district planning supervisor. I think our district recognizes that we've got a lot of LPA projects and a lot of planning work, and that's really not shouldn't be one person's job. So Adam will be getting more involved in coordinating work. Those LPAs that work with the cabinet to do LPA projects, you have a project manager, and keep working with that project manager. Copy Adam, and he'll be involved in those projects, and his role will be more to like coordinate and keep things organized, and try to administratively provide a more organized and approach to delivering LPA projects, and hopefully that'll turn out to help us all to get our projects on the ground more quickly. That's Adam.
Yeah. Congratulations, Adam. We're happy to work with you. At the next meeting, we'll have to select chair and vice chair. It'll be on the agenda as an action item. I guess if anybody is interested, look for at least 2 people to be on a nominating committee. At this point, I noticed that our vice chair has not been present throughout the past year, so we will be looking at chair and vice chair positions for the upcoming year. So anybody want to be on the nominating committee? And what I'd like to do is, as chair, I'm supposed to be present for that. If you have time, right after this meeting, if we want to spend just a few minutes talking about who the nominees might be, and that way we can move it on to the February agenda. Or if you have any other ideas, you want to just go ahead and vote for somebody. Usually we have a nominating committee. The bylaws say that we should have a nominating committee. Any 2 people want to meet real quick after this meeting?
Larry, come on, Larry.
It doesn't mean that you're nominated. It just means that you're nominating people.
Make a motion for Keith Griffin. I'll tell the nomination.
Appreciate it.
Does that preclude him from being on the chairman?
No, not necessarily. No. Matter of fact, he can nominate himself if he cares to. But one more person. And again, if you can just hang around, we'll have a quick meeting, and I think we can accomplish this fairly quickly. Matt, can you stick around? Come on, bro. Thank you.
I'll be done by 2:30.
Yeah, we'll be out of here quickly. Thanks. Any other business? If not, we're adjourned. Thank you.
What about just